She looked at the eviction notice like it was written in a language she'd forgotten how to read. Her hands didn't shake. That was the part that scared her most. 3 days earlier, she'd had a retirement fund. A small one. Modest. But hers. Now there was nothing but a voicemail from a law firm she'd never heard of, telling her the money was gone. Legally gone because of something called high-risk reinvestment clauses she didn't remember signing. She sat in the kitchen of the apartment she'd lived in for 11 years, staring at a cup of tea she hadn't touched. The clock ticked. She didn't cry. She didn't call anyone. Because who do you call when you've become the kind of person people warn each other about? That's what happens when you don't pay attention. You have to read the fine print. She had read it. She thought she had. But somewhere between trust and survival, the world had moved faster than she could follow. And now, at 62 years old, she was about to lose everything. That was the moment everything began to unravel. This is a golden heart story for anyone who's ever believed it was too late to start over. Before we continue, tell me in the comments. Do you believe second chances exist after 60? Her name was Vivian Cole. She had been a library assistant for Third Eye for years. Retired 2 years ago with a pension that was supposed to last. It hadn't. She didn't tell her daughter. Her daughter had her own problems. A new baby, a husband who traveled. A life Vivian didn't want to burden. So Vivian did what she'd always done. She kept quiet. She made lists. She Googled free legal aid and tenant rights and how to dispute fraud until her eyes burned. She went to the grocery store and bought the smallest carton of milk. She reheated leftovers twice. She unplugged everything at night to save on the electric bill. And every morning, she woke up and pretended she wasn't terrified. His name was David Ashford. 67, CEO of a commercial real estate firm worth 9 figures. He lived alone in a penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked a city he no longer really saw. His assistant managed his calendar. His chef prepared his meals. His driver took him everywhere. He hadn't cooked for himself in 15 years. He hadn't had a conversation that wasn't transactional in longer than that. His daughter called once a month. Duty calls. They were polite, distant. His late wife had been gone 6 years. He'd loved her. He thought he had. But somewhere in the space between building an empire and maintaining one, he'd stopped knowing what love actually felt like. Now, he spent his evenings reading contracts and his weekends approving acquisitions. He told himself this was purpose. But at night, when the city went quiet, the penthouse felt like a mausoleum. And he couldn't remember the last time someone had looked at him and seen a man, not a portfolio. Vivian walked the same route every day. Past the bakery. Past the park. Past the coffee shop where she used to treat herself on Fridays. She didn't go in anymore. David's driver took the same route every morning. Past the park. Past the bakery. Past the coffee shop his assistant sometimes picked up orders from. He never went in. To people. Same city. Same exhaustion. Same loneliness. Neither of them knew the other existed. Not yet. It happened on a Tuesday. Vivian was at the community center, sitting in a folding chair in a fluorescent-lit room, listening to a lawyer explain why her case was complex and unlikely to be resolved quickly. Translation: you're on your own. She left before the session ended. She walked. No direction. Just movement. She ended up outside a building she didn't recognize. Tall, glass, expensive-looking. There was a small cafe on the ground floor. She went in. Ordered nothing. Just a man in a tailored coat walked in. Late 60s, graying hair, tired eyes. He ordered black coffee. Didn't look at the menu. Didn't look at anyone. He sat 3 tables away. Vivian watched him. Not because he was striking, but because he looked exactly how she felt. Alone in a room full of people. He glanced up. Their eyes met. Just for a second. He looked away first. But something in that look. It wasn't pity. It wasn't curiosity. It was recognition. Vivian left first. She didn't say anything. But as she pushed through the door, she felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Seen. She saw him again 2 days later. Same caf, same seat. This time she didn't sit far away. She sat one table over. He noticed. He didn't say anything. But when he got up to leave, he paused. "Excuse me." She looked up. "You were here the other day," he said. "I was." "You didn't order anything then either." She smiled faintly. "I didn't." He hesitated. "Then would you like a coffee?" "I'll buy." She should have said no. She didn't. They sat together. He didn't ask her name right away. She didn't ask his. They talked about nothing. The weather. The city. The cafe's terrible music. It was the first real conversation she'd had in weeks. It was the first real conversation he'd had in years. When he finally introduced himself, he said, "I'm David." She said, "Vivian." They shook hands. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it. Something shifted in his expression, just slightly. "I have to go," he said. "But would you be here tomorrow?" She didn't know why she said yes. But she did. The next day, she Googled him. David Ashford, CO. Ashford and Lyle Properties. Net worth estimated at $320 million. Her stomach dropped. She closed her laptop. She didn't go back to the caf. But he did. He waited for 30 minutes. She didn't come. He left his number with the barista. "If a woman named Vivian comes in, tell her I'd like to hear from her." The barista looked at him like he was insane. He didn't care. Vivian got the message 3 days later. She stared at the crumpled napkin with his number on it. She almost threw it away. But something stopped her. Maybe it was loneliness. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was the memory of how he'd looked at her like she mattered. She texted him. "I'm sorry I didn't come back." He replied in seconds. "Don't be. Just tell me why." She didn't answer right away. Finally she typed, "Because I didn't think people like you talk to people like me." His response came slower this time. "People like me are lonelier than you think." They started meeting. Not at the caf. At the park. Neutral ground. They walked. Talked. Sat on benches and watched strangers pass by. He told her about his late wife. How he'd worked too much. How he'd missed too much. She told him about the fraud. The eviction notice. The shame of it. He listened. He didn't try to fix it. He didn't offer money. He just listened. And for the first time in months, Vivian felt like a person again. One afternoon he said, "I want to help." She stiffened. "I don't need charity." "It's not charity." "David, I know who you are." He went quiet. "I Googled you," she said. "I know what you're worth. I know what I look like to you." "What do you look like to me?" She hesitated. "A project. A story. Someone you can feel good about helping." He looked at her for a long time. "You look like the first person in 5 years who's asked me how I'm doing and actually waited for an answer." She didn't know what to say. "I'm not trying to save you, Vivian," he said quietly. "I'm trying not to disappear." She let him help. Not with money. With calls, lawyers, paperwork, pressure. He made things move. Slowly, carefully. And in return, she let him be human. They had coffee. Not in boardrooms or penthouses. In diners. In parks. In her tiny kitchen. He laughed for the first time in years. She remembered what it felt like to be wanted, not needed. Wanted. But something else was building. Something neither of them said out loud. A fear. What happens when this ends? It came from his daughter. She called him on a Sunday. "Dad, I heard you've been spending time with someone." He paused. "Who is she?" "A friend." "Does this friend know how much you're worth?" His jaw tightened. "Yes." "And she's still around?" "What are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm asking. Because the last time you got close to someone after Mom, she tried to sue you. That was different. Was it?" He hung up. But the words stayed. He pulled back. Not dramatically, just quietly. Fewer texts, shorter calls. Vivian noticed. She didn't push. But she felt it. The distance. The doubt. One night she called him. "David, if you don't want to see me anymore, just say it." Silence. "I don't know what I want," he said finally. "Then figure it out," she said. "Because I can't keep wondering if I'm a mistake you're trying to undo." She hung up. He didn't call back. Not that night. Not the next day. She told herself it was fine. She told herself she'd been stupid to believe it could have been real. She started packing. The eviction was final. She had 2 weeks. David sat in his penthouse, staring at his phone. At the last text she'd sent. "I hope you find what you're looking for." His daughter's words echoed. His late wife's voice echoed. His own fear echoed. And then he thought, when did I stop believing I deserved to be happy? He got in his car. He drove himself. No driver, no assistant, no plan. Just him. He showed up at her building. Knocked on her door. She opened it. Her eyes were red. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "I was afraid," he said. She blinked. "I was afraid you'd want me for my money. I was afraid you'd leave. I was afraid I'd mess it up." He exhaled. "But I'm more afraid of losing you than I am of any of that." Her lip trembled. "I don't need saving, David." "I know. And I don't need your money." "I know that too." "Then what do you need?" He looked at her. Really looked. "You," he said. "Just you. If this story reminds you of someone you lost or almost lost, share it with them." He helped her move. Not into his penthouse. Into a modest apartment across town. One she could afford with the settlement his lawyers finally pushed through. She didn't want his money. But she let him be there. She let him carry boxes, paint walls, laugh at her terrible furniture choices. And slowly, carefully, they built something neither of them had thought possible. A life. Not perfect. Not easy. But real. His daughter came to visit. She met Vivian. She was skeptical at first. But when she saw the way her father smiled, really smiled, she softened. "Thank you," she said to Vivian quietly, "for giving him back to himself." Vivian's daughter visited too. With the baby. David held the baby like it was the most fragile thing in the world. Vivian watched him. And for the first time in years, she felt whole. They didn't get married. They didn't need to. They had coffee every morning. They walked every evening. They argued about small things and laughed about smaller ones. And when the world felt heavy, they reminded each other, "You're not alone anymore." Thank you for spending this time with Golden Heart Stories. If this story moved you, like and subscribe. Your support helps us keep telling stories that matter. What part of this story stayed with you the most? Leave it in the comments. We'll see you in the next one.